helping your children. We ask, O Lord, that you bless our time together, help us to acquire the learning, help us to interact and engage, help us to understand, open our minds and our hearts, Lord, to receive your message. Help us, Lord, as we discuss things today, as we listen, as we share our thoughts and ideas, as we look into psychology and into counseling, that we see the truth, O Lord, your truth, wherever it is. Help us, Lord, to be equipped so that we may be part of the group of people that you have selected, the disciples that you have called, the servants that you have put in place to be, O Lord, your reflection and your image, to reflect your image amongst the young people who need you very much, need you the most. Help us, Lord, to be obedient to your prompting, the prompting of your Holy Spirit within us. Bless us and give us a blessed time together this evening. Bless all my brothers and sisters who are here and those who are attending online. Help us, Lord, to give you the glory in everything and all things that we do. In your name, Lord Jesus, we pray through the intercessions, the prayers of Saint Mary, the intercessions and prayers of all the archangels and the angels and the heavenly hosts and the saints who have pleased you since the beginning of time to the end of time. Make us worthy, O Lord, to pray thankfully, Our Father who art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. In Christ Jesus our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Do you mind, Kira, closing the door? Thank you. I'm not going to use the mic. You can hear me clearly. Okay, so we're finally in our last session for this course. You're done one of the courses, so that's going to be a new transition. I'll be speaking of a few things about the next course and all that at the end of today's session. But right now, I want to dive straight into drug and substance abuse. So the number one, so later after I'm done that, I'm going to come to the emotional issues. I just was testing it to make sure it's up there. We're going to come back to anxiety and depression, and we're going to do a case study for each. And after we're done that, if we have time, I might introduce to you solution-focused brief therapy, because it can give you easy tools to use. But if we don't have time for that, it's not really part of the syllabus. It would be a nice thing to add if I can, but if not, then we'll jump straight and finish up with suicide intervention and management. Okay, any questions from last time? We're good? Okay. So let me just minimize this. So are you seeing this screen online? Okay. So again, for the people online, welcome. Just to let you know, I'm not going to speak about emotional issues, anxiety yet. I will speak about that after a lecturing piece and the case study for drug and alcohol abuse. How many of you have some experience working with or known someone, a friend or a colleague or maybe a family member, who knows, who has had some issues with drug or alcohol abuse? And yep. And what is it that you think is some of the challenges that face people working or serving someone who may be going through drug or alcohol use or abuse? Can we pass on the second mic? Do we have a second mic? 1 second, Philip. So people online as well, please let us know if there is anything that you want to share, if you have an experience as such. Go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, so it depends on how close the person is to you. So in my case, it was a high school friend that I knew. He had an issue. He had an addiction to codeine. It was very addicting. And so like he was reaching out to me because he just needed a friend to help him go through things.
Yes.
And like it kind of puts that responsibility. It kind of feels like, okay, I have to be there for him, because if I'm not there for him, and one day he just overdoses and he ends up dying, then he'll just feel like a very hefty responsibility.
And this was addiction to codeine?
Codeine, yeah. It was very, but thankfully, yeah, like just it's just a matter of spending time with them and direct them to the right resources to actually help them overcome their addiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges is, I guess I'm hearing from what you're saying is there is a bit of an emotional pressure on you.
Yeah.
Some sort of a sense of responsibility or a worry.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Things you've experienced with other people that you can share with the rest of us. Yeah.
Usually feel that they are trapped and their life depends on the substance.
Yeah, they're trapped.
They are trapped.
Then they tell you pretty much that they cannot go without it.
Yes, they are absolutely trapped. Definition of addiction.
Stuck. They're really stuck. Yeah, it's true. Nader, I'm going to count on you today to tell me if there is anyone online who would like. Please, online people, share if you would like. Other challenges that you could either you've experienced or someone else experienced and relate to you, or you might think could exist.
It's normal. Everybody does it.
It's people say that, or you believe that. Which of the two?
Some people say.
Some people say it's normal. Everybody's doing it. So what? So it's almost like denial that there is an issue, right? Yeah.
Sometimes they can be very like aggressive with you because they're too engrossed in what they're doing and they don't want to let it go.
So they could be aggressive,
Yeah.
especially if they can't get the substance.
Yeah.
Right? Or also, when under the influence of the substance, they're really not in full control of their behavior. So you don't know exactly, you're not dealing with the person, you're dealing with the person under the influence. And it's just a different person altogether, completely different person. Okay, so the number one drug problem is, yep. Yeah.
They would feel ashamed for their addiction, embarrassed to share or others.
Yep. There's definitely a level of shame and embarrassment, and obviously holding back from seeking help or talking about it. Yeah.
And then another problem is they fear judgment, so they are attacking them instead of helping them.
Yeah. Yeah. The part of the shame is that they feel like they are self-judging, and also that they will be quite sensitive to other people's comments or judgment and so on. Good point. Yep. Hmm? Substance, substance in general, but specifically we're going to now talk about drug and alcohol. Yeah. So the number one drug problem is, do you happen to know the number one drug problem? Fentanyl? No. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You had your hand up. Marijuana? No. Alcohol. That's right. Alcohol is the number one drug problem. Alcoholism, because for obvious reasons. What? It's readily accessible and it's not necessarily expensive, right? So, and it's been around much longer in terms of it being legal than something like marijuana, right? So, and also we're talking, this is the number one drug problem amongst adolescents specifically. And that age of adolescent, as you all know by now, having read some of the chapters in your books, that's an age of experimentation. They're just experimenting with things, trying to find who they are. So there's an identity crisis, as Erik Erikson tells us. And you know what? It makes sense. They try it. It's one person tries it, the whole team, the whole group can get into it. And it's getting younger and younger. So younger people are experimenting with alcohol and with drugs than, let's say, a generation ago. Junior high are making decisions on alcohol, drugs, and vaping. So warning signs. I'm wondering if you could maybe share some of your thoughts on that. Warning signs. What are some warning signs that a teenage person might be involved in alcohol or drug abuse? Yep. Isolation. Lack of commitment. And with isolation, I'd say like social withdrawal. You see that? Okay. What else? Think teens. Don't think adults. So they're becoming more irritable, definitely. So they could be aggressive as well. What else? That's right. There is a change in attitude. It's almost people say that's not the same person that I knew. And parents could say that that's not our son, that's not our daughter. Something is different about them. Also, deterioration in school stuff, like in school performance, resistance to authority. They may have behavioral problem. They may engage in high risk behavior like stealing. They may have extensive mood swings. You know, one time they're very, very happy, and all of a sudden they're very, very down and depressed. Sexual promiscuity, another behavior that has been noted among those who are using drugs. Physical complaints, so they may complain of headaches, recurrent headaches, persistent headaches. They may complain of other physical pains. Changes in relationships, changes in eating habits. And some of the observable signs is that you might come like on a youth night and say hello to one of those youth, and as you give them a nice hug, you notice what? Yeah, the smell of alcohol, the smell of drugs, the smell of marijuana, slurred speech when they talk. Even if you look into their eyes, you might notice that their pupils are, more dilated than the norm. Also, the presence of, here is, how do parents usually find out that one of their teens is doing drugs or a lot of, okay, so they might have some of what they actually drink and use, or they open up their bags to clean up. Mom says, I just opened to take your laundry, but mom was actually opening to check, and opens and sees, and there's these bottles in there, or drug, the things like pipes, pill boxes, straws, spoons, and so on and so forth. Also, you may find that the teenage is actually wearing clothes that depict a lot of drug themes. So they found that there is some sort of a correlation to that as well. So we want to distinguish between two categories. One is called psychoactive substance abuse, and the other one is called psychoactive substance dependence. What is the difference between abuse and dependence?
So dependence, for example, a good example of dependence is coffee. If you don't drink coffee, then you start getting headaches or you start feeling anxious or things like that. But like you don't have, it's not an addiction. And that like you can live without it. It's fine. But addiction is like if you don't do it, then you just have these debilitating symptoms, and they can be life-threatening in some cases.
Very good. So then we need some sort of an assessment tool or some sort of a scale that we can keep in our minds. And the National Institute of Mental Health offers us many scales. One of them is the one I'm going to discuss with you today, stage 0 to 4. Keep that in mind, because when we do the case study, I will ask which stage you think that person is at. Because depending on which stage the person is at, the way you would interact and deal with them, the way you would refer them will change. So stage 0, there's curiosity in a world where alcohol is easily available. Just curiosity. Stage one is learning the mood swings with alcohol, or with drugs. So adolescents learn how easy it is to feel good with few, if any, consequences, except perhaps mild guilt. So they can actually experiment a little bit and say, oh, now I know how that changes my mood, but I'm not going to do much of it. But they understand the relationship between the use and the mood change. Stage two is now they're seeking the mood swings. I want the mood swing. I want to feel like I'm relaxed. I want to feel like I'm tipsy. I want that feeling. So they're now seeking it rather than using alcohol as an accompaniment to social events, such as being out, let's say, with, let's say, parents, and they are, let's say, they're 19, 20, and they just get a beer and drink it, for example. No. They're not that type of users now. They're actually seeking harder liquors. They're seeking, if it's alcohol or drugs, because the youngster decided to get drunk as a goal and arranges to have his or her own supply. That is stage two. Stage three, it becomes a preoccupation. So they're preoccupied with the mood swing. They're being drunk is the main goal now pretty much in their life. And as a teenager, now they drink daily and may plan their days around those trips to euphoria. They're deeper into the problem. And then you have stage four, drinking just to feel okay, because when they don't drink, they're so dependent on the substance, and that they actually don't feel okay unless they drink, unless they take marijuana, unless they take whatever drug that they're on. And now we're talking full blown on addiction, and the euphoria becomes harder to achieve every time. So guess what they need to do? They need to up the dose, change, and so on. And they take larger amounts because larger amounts become needed. So those are the four stages, or is this five stages, like 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you could encounter, generally speaking, 4 possible or common types of adolescent drug use. One type is called the experimenter. They experiment up to 4 or 5 times in order to gain acceptance, and can be in the know. So they were curious. Now that they know, now they know what to get, what not to get. And their use is short term, and they are low in frequency. Whereas another type is called the recreationist. And you can imagine from the name of that type, these people use drugs to reach pleasurable experiences, and they want to share those pleasurable experiences with others as well. So with friends. So not to achieve a mood or mental effect from the substance, but they want to do it because it is social. Okay, so those are your recreationists. Then you have the seeker. Those seeks an altered state of being, or an altered state in their mind. They are seeking to feel, zoned out. They are seeking that state, whether they use drugs or alcohol, and they use it regularly in order to achieve a sedative or an intoxicant effect. And then the fourth type, so we said experimenter, recreationist, we said seeker, and the fourth one is the drug head, or what is maybe known more as pothead. So a drug head, this is a sick adolescent who has moved to regular use of whether it be alcohol or drugs, whatever the substance is, and they have moved and changed from things like marijuana to things like cocaine and heroin. So now, as you know, cocaine is not a physical addiction. Cocaine is a mental addiction. Heroin is a physical addiction. And he or she is now addicted. So we looked at the types of people who could be experimenting amongst the teens. Now let's look at the type of drug categories. And alcohol falls under one of these categories. One of the categories of drugs is called depressants. And what do depressants do? That's an easy one.
Depress you.
They depress you pretty much. So they slow down the activity in the nervous system. That's why they depress you. So which drug would fall under that? Alcohol. That's right. It's alcohol is one. It's an inhibitor of brain function. Also inhalants. So in certain areas where people do not have money to buy and cannot really get the drugs, they may inhale glue, for example. They inhale nail polish remover, cleaning fluid, gasoline. It gives a sense of euphoria, um, and it's really excellent. So places where, for example, like Egypt, in Egypt, where people may not have the money to buy. Now, I think it's a bit different, but they actually look for anything that's going to give them like a nervous system, depressing effect. Minor tranquilizers like Valium, also those can be street drugs, by the way, as well. They're in the pharmacy, but they can be also street drugs. Sedatives and all depressants, except one type called PCP, they can be obtained legally. All of them can be obtained legally, except PCP. The other one, so that's depressants. The other one is stimulants. Stimulants, they stimulate activity, so they do the opposite to the brain. They suppress your appetite, and they make you feel better emotionally. So people could take them because they're down, and these include something we drink all the day, every day: coffee, caffeine, right? What else? Adderall, that's right. And a lot of students, when they want to stay up to study, they do what? Yeah, they do that, and they also drink energy drinks. That's right. Nicotine is also a stimulant. Amphetamines, cocaine, methadone, these are some of the stimulants. Then the third category is hallucinogens. These are mind distorters. They actually create an altered perception. And under these is marijuana and LSD, mescaline, and all are illegal except marijuana. Then the first one, we said depressants, stimulants, hallucinogens, and then we have narcotics. Narcotics, they have an analgesic effect. They relieve physical pain. They're highly, highly addictive. So here you have your codeines, you have your morphines, and your fentanyl, and all that. So why is there a struggle with substance? Think teens again. So don't think adults. Adults is a different story, similar but different in certain aspects. Think teens. Why is there a struggle with substance among teens? Can you say that again, Malish, for the people online?
I think some of it falls under like social pressure and like trying to figure out who they are, but the other part can be like self-medicating for like mental health or like some emotional struggle.
Yeah, some of them are self-medicating, but how do they self-medicate? Huh? Say it, Myrna. How do they
They're
self-medicate?
friends.
They're friends, exactly. You know what? I've been having these headaches. No problem. Take this pill. Or you know what? I've been blazing or smoking. Kate, try this. So peer pressure. What else? Self-medication. What else? Why do we have a problem amongst teens when it comes to alcohol or drug or substance abuse? Yes. That's right. They have trauma that they're trying to suppress, so they go to maladaptive behaviors. So the root cause of the addiction, the root cause of the use of substance could very well be the one you need to be after And that could root cause it usually dumps into the trauma baskets. Family factors. Maybe mom or dad are users, right? Like they could be heavy drinkers, or they could have issues with alcohol. It could be inherited, like within the family somehow. Also, personality factors. Tell me, what aspects of personality could increase one's risk as a teen for substance use and abuse? So shy, that's on the outside, and what's happening on the inside? What's going on? Why are they shy? They're trying to make friends. Right? Yes. You remember last week, was it? We spoke about the pressures. Remember pressures and the needs? There are 2 pressures and 5 needs. Any one of you remember the 2 pressures on teens? There are 2 pressures and 5 needs. Yes? The pressure to fit in, so to blend and to conform. There's a pressure to conform, of course, yes. To achieve, there's an expectation. And then there are 5 needs, or 4 needs, depending on how you put them. What are their needs? Significance? Did you say that? Okay. Yeah, self-worth, that they're valuable, a need for to be valued. 3. To be accepted, yes. 4. They have a need to feel safe, security, and thank you, and loved, of course. Okay, so low self-esteem, personality traits we're talking, that may be risk factors. Low expectations from personal achievements. Lacks impulse control. Highly adventurous personality. Seeking inclusion in social group. Basically, the adolescent who is low on personal inner resources is most vulnerable. So how to help? Once you start working with someone who is using substance, and once you start to intervene, keep 5 things in mind. The first one is parents of the teen are to be involved from day 1. Say, oh, but the confidentiality and confidentiality, what here? You're not a therapist here. You're not registered at the college where a teen comes to you and now you cannot disclose anything, but you've got to get involved, we're talking about servants in the church. Now, you think you can help a teen with their substance or drug use apart from the nuclear family, then I would challenge that notion. I don't think you can. Obviously, the teen is gonna come. You're not gonna pick up the phone and call the parent, but you have to work with the teen somehow to get maybe the priest or the father of confession involved and the parent involved as a way of having like a circle of care for the teen. Unless obviously the problem is because of someone in the house and there are issues there. But I'm just speaking about these 5 things in general. First one is parents are to be involved day 1. Number 2, information about drugs must be provided truthfully. So you don't say, oh, but they know. No, they know and they need to hear it. And they need to hear it again. And they need to read something and they need to maybe attend a class, or you need to watch something. Class, I mean like YouTube, because it's all online. They can see something about the danger of what the substance they're using is. So parents info. Number 3, health promoting alternatives for use of free time. So when usually teens will tell you, you know what, I'm occupied when I'm at work, or when I'm like have a lot of work at school, or if they're employed, they're not really thinking about the substance as much. And so there needs to be another alternative, a healthy or a health promoting alternative to the times when they have free time on their hands. Number four, they need to be given opportunities to feel significant and to contribute in a meaningful way to their school, to their families, to their church, to their community, and so on and so forth. So these five things are essential to keep in mind. Now, we might need to refer the family to a counselor. We might need to plug into the support offered at church. And some churches, they offer group support. I'm not talking necessarily Coptic church that I've not seen in a Coptic church yet, but other churches, they have things like Celebrating Recovery, which is a program that is available in the community, where people can go and they have, it's like AA group therapy and stuff like that. For also drug abuse, not just alcohol, for other things, and for pornography and so on. We might need to consider inpatient like treatment. In some cases, I tell the parents and I tell the person, say, listen, we all agree on the goal that you cannot continue on this. You must be cleared of the drug, correct? They say, absolutely yes. Say, in your case, you will not actually get well outpatiently. You will not get well when you're still coming to the church, going home. You need an inpatient program. And those exist. They exist in hospitals, they exist in centers, detox center, but at a certain stage, that person will not be helped unless the treatment is a little bit more aggressive, and those happen in-house, like inpatient treatment. Yes, parents, involvement and awareness. Number two, information about drugs, truthfully, must be given, and reminders of the issue with the substance that they're using. Thirdly, helping the teen acquire health promoting habits or behaviors in free time. Number four, students are given opportunities to explore capabilities and ways to contribute uh, in meaningful ways to school and their families. And number five, you must know very clearly that at one point a referral is needed. So also to consider to acquaint yourselves with programs in the community. One of the good things you could do is, after a class like this, you might actually go and search what are services offered within Peel, if you live in Peel, or if you're in, let's say, Alberta or somewhere else. You consider what services and resources are available to you as a servant if you're working with teens, in case you might have to knock on some of these doors to help the youth. So AA programs, where are they? Where are they offered? When do they start? How do we include someone? And so on. Those the 12-step program. Another thing to consider as working with those teens is to explore cognitive distortions. Remember, a teenager at this age, under those two pressures and those five needs, some of them may not be met. Remember, when those two intersect, pressures and needs,
I know, that's
unmet
what I did
needs.
at PCC.
Are they from online? Okay. When the needs and the pressures intersect, remember, a teenager must survive the lack of those needs being fulfilled and must survive the pressures. So what do they end up doing to survive? We talked about that last time. One of the things that they do in order to balance or handle pressures and needs, what do? Yeah, well, what is that? So don't give, maybe not the specifics. Coping mechanisms, right? And some of these coping mechanisms are actually defense mechanisms. And in fact, some of these coping mechanisms or defense mechanisms are not healthy. So we call them maladaptive behavior. And maladaptive behaviors, these are things that initially are supposed to help the teen. So when they go to the alcohol, they can't handle the thoughts some of the distorted thoughts that they have about themselves, for example. So they need to calm their head, their brain down. So what do? They drink alcohol. Why? So that they can suppress the brain. And it actually works to start, but it's maladaptive because as it's working initially, it's hurting them in the process. And so that's where the word maladaptive. It's supposed to be adaptive, but unfortunately, it's maladaptive. So usually, these cognitive distortions are so automatic and subtle that adolescents become almost unaware of them, and they jump right away to heal from them or to stop them or to change them rather than slow down and say, okay, what's going on that's leading me to this? You know, when people come and talk about an addiction to pornography or an addiction to alcohol and stuff, I clearly say, even though this is a spiritual matter, but it is something that must be dealt psychologically and must be dealt in a very specific way. So they have negative self-talks that hurt them very much. They also have old beliefs about the necessity of using drugs to bring about excitement and adventure, to feel good, and to suppress unpleasant feelings. And all this comes to them also from media that surrounds them, from the music they listen to. And some of it, sometimes from their own beliefs. So there are three common distortions that I'd like you to be aware of. There are many, but there are three common distortions. One is called selective abstraction, which is basically like a tunnel vision. The only way I can have fun is to get high. That's called a tunnel vision. It's called a selective abstraction, which means in their minds, they actually take a lot of the truth out and hold on to only one thing that comes from their experience. And theirs is like, for example, the only way I can have fun, there's no way I'm going to this party and I'm not gonna smoke. There's no way. There's no way I'm not gonna have marijuana or I'm not gonna take cocaine, because the only way I can have fun, the only way I can have fun, that's the distortion, is for me to be high or to get high. There is also another distortion called overgeneralization, which is I stopped drinking for 2 days once, so I know I can stop anytime. You know, if I did it once, I can always do it. That's a false, and it's overgeneralization. Usually those are false. Or he says, I didn't have a single friend before I began to drink. Now that I began to drink, look at the party that I have. So again, they're taking from one thing and generalizing it to others. The third one is superstitious thinking. So I do drugs before exams because when I take this stuff, I actually do well on my exam. You know, I perform better. I have powers I never dreamed of, and I do my most creative work when I'm on the drugs. So this is superstitious thinking. It's a false way of thinking, but they actually believe it. I had one of the youth who told me, and that's because of withdrawal symptoms and all, that he could not focus in a calculus class unless he actually smoked before going into class. So we definitely, amongst the things we do to help is we teach stress management, because a lot of this pressure and unmet needs end up being felt by the teens as pressure or stress. So as they're stressed, they're trying to relieve the stress, so they jump into maladaptive behavior, and usually that would include things like substance. As I said earlier, many turn to drugs or substance in order to escape from a reality that they don't want. It's almost like dissociating, but they do it through substance. Here, student spirituality becomes important because in a way, our spirituality impacts our psychology, and our psychology impacts our spirituality. So when you have a teen who finds their sense of relief when they pray, you know, the world thinks, you know, people pray because it helps them psychologically. So what? Like, does this mean prayer and spirituality are now not real and they're just imaginative because they help you feel better? No, this is the reality of how we're created. Our spirit and our psyche and our body, they interact all the time. And they're not separable from each other in the sense that they're connected. They're very interconnected. So yes, when I pray and I connect with God, I feel better. So when I become to when I start having a responsibility in the church and I feel a little bit more significant, yes, sure. Then I'm veered away from using these substances or drugs. Yeah, I said earlier, we must help the teen find a health promoting behavior to fill their empty times. Right? It's always like an interesting part when people say religion isn't real, it's only a psychological pill. Now, it's not a psychological pill in the sense that it's not real, but because it's real, it has an impact on my psychology. It's not imaginative. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? The interconnectedness is so real that when we are spiritual, we are also psychologically healthier. Ultimately, and that doesn't mean that someone who is spiritual will not be depressed. I'm just saying when our minds are spiritual, so also that will impact our psychology in a positive way. This is the interconnectedness that I'm speaking about. Not to say that someone could be very spiritual actually, but they have a mental illness. But ultimately, when we are saved completely, both our psyche, all our psyche, physical body, and our spiritual entity or part of us that is spiritual, all will be healed. So one, in dealing with teenagers, especially as people in the church, we must pay attention to a person's spiritual development. Also, helping with self-care, stuff that you will hear me talk about a lot. Self-care is a neglected necessity. It's a neglected necessity. We cannot do without self-care. And in an environment where parents are pushing for performance, school is pushing for performance, friends are competitive, especially in a community like ours, there is a high level of competitiveness. And then there is the person's own self-expectations, like their expectation of themselves. All this, and there's no self-care. There's no self-care whatsoever. They think if they go to bed at night, that's self-care. No, that's definitely something that as a servant you must be conscious of when working with teens and working with adolescents. How is it that you're caring for you? So relaxation, going to the gym, physical exercise, eating healthy, sleeping well, having a good 8 hour of sleep, very important. What is it that you do near nighttime? Guess what? A lot of teenagers, I'm not speaking about adults, but teenagers, they have such bad habits at night, from media, so from surfing their social media or being on their computers, and their system is saying like, I need to rest, but you're pumping me and hyping me, and then that increases to the stress level that a person has. They wake up the next day, they don't feel good, they wake up tired. Now, the number one thing when you meet someone and say, how you doing? And they really want to talk to you, say, I'm tired. I'm tired. And the word tired is not just I'm physically tired. I am mentally tired. I am emotionally tired, and so on and so forth. So there's the last thing I will say here is there will be a referral to the doctor at one point, medical examination, especially people with high frequency and high intensity drug users, and maybe to a detox center, as I mentioned earlier, especially if affecting the safety uh, of themselves or that of others. There are brothers or sisters who don't feel safe at home, parents who don't feel safe at home because of a teenager who comes home drunk and or is high or on drugs and so on and so forth. Okay, let's just see if you have questions before I give you the case study. Any questions? This is a brief overview, by the way. Any questions? Any comments? Anything you'd like to add? Okay, so divide you up into three groups again. Okay, so let's count. Can we start from the back? So we'll count to three and then start again. Just remember your number. No, one, yeah. One. You're always one or what? You're always one. Okay, so people online, please, I would encourage you after the session. There is also a case study. I will make sure I put it on Moodle so you can, if it's not already on Moodle, I think it's already on Moodle. So if you open up your Moodle, you'll be able to access that case study on drug and alcohol abuse or drug abuse. So if you could open that and have that discussion, if you're able to do that now, that would be great. Otherwise, you will have to do, obviously, regardless, you have to do some posting. Okay, so we're discussing Matthew. Everyone's discussing Matthew, but you're doing it in small groups. What I'm asking you to do as you're going through this is answer the following questions. The first thing is, what is leading or what might be leading to Matthew's substance abuse? Second, what are Matthew's coping mechanisms or defense mechanisms? According to the stages that we spoke about, what is the stage that you find Matthew at in terms of drug use or abuse? Thirdly, what do you suggest would be your approach in helping Matthew? What would you suggest will be your approach as a servant in helping Matthew? So now it's 3:53. We'll give you 15 minutes. So that would be, let's say 4:10. 4:10, so like a little bit more than 15 minutes. 4:10, we reconvene and we move on to speak about anxiety, emotional issues such as anxiety, maybe depression as well. But we'll start with anxiety. Any questions on the group work? Good. So I'm gonna hand out the case. Who's one? Group one? Group one. Who's group two? Okay. Who's group three? Let's talk together, okay? Can I still use this or not? It echoes over there. Oh, case number one. Matt is 16. He was brought to you by his mom, who was tired of dealing with his drug abuse problems. Matt's school was also threatening him with expulsion unless he secured immediate treatment. He was caught drinking alcohol in the morning on school property 2 months ago, and more recently, school officials discovered marijuana in his locker. He denied having a problem with drinking or drugs. He says, it's as if I committed murder or something, but did report smoking marijuana now and then. As a young boy, Matt was pleasant, never seemed to cause much trouble. In junior high, however, he began to hang out with young people his mom and dad did not like. He started listening to weird and loud music. His mom reported he begged and begged to go to a Marilyn Manson concert with his friends until I just let him go, she says. 4 years ago, his parents separated. His dad had reported that he discovered that Matt and his friends use an old rusted out van that is up on blocks in a neighbor's backyard as their drug club. His mom said they used this van to contain the smoke within and increase the effect of marijuana. So, question number one. What's the question and what do you want to and share your answers? If you give the question or pick one of the questions, Probably if we take them in order, probably be best. So question number one, group one.
Right.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with the first question.
First question,
What is leading Matthew?
what might
to
be
Matthew?
leading Matthew into the issues?
We think it's the trauma from his parents' separation,
Okay.
as well as peer pressure hanging out with the wrong crowd.
Okay, trauma, potential. So as all hypotheses, remember when we spoke about the counseling, you have to kind of come up with some thoughts as to what might be the issue. And you think maybe it's the trauma from the parent separation and peer pressure,
Hanging out with the wrong.
hanging out with the wrong crowd. Group 2 and 3. What are your thoughts on this? You have anything to add to that? You said the same thing. Okay, so it must be right. Yes, absolutely. Group 2, anything you might want to add?
Boundaries at home. His mom seems simply to give in when he says, "I want to go to a Marilyn Manson concert."
Yeah.
So there's a lack of
So there
boundaries.
could be some issues with parenting over there. There could be a difference in parenting. Who knows? But this part here might be alluding to that. Okay.
As well as the media that he's consuming, which Marilyn Manson is not a great role model.
Yes. So also influence from the media. Absolutely. That's a good pick. That's a good pick on this case. Anything else? Okay. Group 2, question 2.
Question 2 is, what are the coping mechanisms? So we said that right now, so the coping mechanism initially was using the drugs, the marijuana, and then moving to whatever else he's doing in the van.
Yeah.
He's moved on to also denial. It's not that bad. I just smoke a few times a day.
That's a clear coping mechanism, a defense mechanism.
Yes.
It's not a big deal. It's not like I'm committing murder or anything. So what type of coping mechanism is that? So there's denial, but it's not like I'm committing murder.
That's avoidance under flight.
So it's avoidance. It's
Yes.
a big category of avoidance, and it's really undermining the matter or justification. What is it? Do you remember there were the few of those under avoidance?
Rationalization.
Rationalization. Exactly. He's saying, it just makes sense. It's no big deal. Very good. What else? Group 1 and 3. Anything else you want to add to coping mechanisms? Where?
Because we said acquiescence because he's not able to fight back. So when his parents split up, he didn't have the chance to put input or say anything. He didn't get a chance to fight back. And so now this is sort of like his way of, I guess, fighting against
Of responding back
or responding, yeah.
rebelling back. Okay, yeah.
Um,
Showing that it hurt him.
Yeah.
Showing that he's not okay with this.
and then acting out and displacement as an attack or
Displacement.
yeah.
Where is the displacement?
Let me see.
Anyone can jump in and help as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me think.
Where's the displacement? If there is displacement, where is it?
Because he,
From
well,
what to what?
because he's being destructive. Because he's being
Yeah, it just
destructive.
doesn't work for me. It works
Yeah,
only for
I know,
people.
but-
I get you.
He's being destructive.
He's being destructive. So,
Yeah.
so where is the displacement piece? I agree with you. I want you to tell me, so it shows an understanding. Where is the displacement? What is displacement? Let's read the definition. What is displacement? Okay, so he's taking what on what? Sure. Yeah, you could say anger, but you and I know very well that anger is not a primary feeling, right? There's a primary feeling, but anger is usually a secondary feeling, and it's the first one people show. But under anger, there's something very different. What's that? There is fear, because when the parents split, what could have entered into Matt's heart, into Matt's mind and heart? The fear of what? Fear of loneliness, abandonment. Exactly. That's why he's finding belongingness with whom? With people who are a little bit more stable around him, right? Some people find stability. They say the only constant in my life is my pet. And so they attach so well to their pets. And they're like 5, 6, 7 or so. And then 6 years later or 7 years later, when the 13, 14, 8 years later, their pet dies. And then you can imagine what happens. The only constant in their life was their pets. Everything else was variable, unpredictable. Trauma, again. Very good, excellent point. Anything that you would like to add before? Okay, so that was question 3, right? There's question 2. Question 2, okay. Question 3, group 3.
So the question 3 was, what is the stage you find him at in terms of drug use? We said stage 4, so the final stage, because he's gotten the full effects of what it can do. He's confined himself in the space of the van just so that he could feel more of it. And so that shows that he is not only dependent on it, but just he's consumed by it, by the drugs.
So you gave him stage 4.
Yeah.
Anybody would like to give him a different stage? Yes.
Stage 4 means that. So stage 4 means that they need to do it to feel okay, but there's nothing in the text that suggests that he needed to do it to feel okay. It's more like he had a preoccupation with it.
Okay.
So we would say it's anywhere from stages 3 to 4. Before the
Stage
process,
what?
anywhere from stages 3 to 4 to range.
3 to 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Group 2, what do you think? Mainly what?
Mainly 3, but some 2.
Mainly 3, but some 2. What part of 2 do you want to hold? Do you want to keep? Well, stage 3 does encompass stage 2, but what is in stage 2 that you like see in this?
So stage 2 is like he's seeking the high, he's seeking the effects of the drugs. And stage 3 would be that he's planning his day around it. And so we weren't sure exactly whether he's planning his day around it, but we saw that, he started off with it, alcohol in the morning, weed in his locker. So we think there may be some planning, but we can't be 100% sure.
So yes, so I would not put it at stage 4 yet, unless other things come up. But I would think that it is stage 2, because he's seeking the mood swings. He's not. Alcohol is being used as an accompaniment to social events, but in addition to that, it's a goal, and there is planning and arrangement to have his own supplies because they found out he has his own. Is he preoccupied with the mood swings? We don't know. Being drunk or being on high is the main goal of life. We don't know. Students drink daily and they may plan their days around trips to Euphoria. We don't know. So I would place it at stage 2. I don't have enough information to put it at 3 and not 4.
Sorry. If you know at the end, it says like he's in the van and they're closing the van so that they get that
Increase the effects.
increase the effect of it. So it means
Yeah.
that they are seeking.
Yeah. Good. So How are you going to help this person? Or what are your thoughts around helping this person as a servant? Group 1, 2, or 3, so we can all hear. So you say something, don't say everything that the other group says. Okay. Don't say it.
I'll say one thing. Well,
Sure.
Educate Matthew on the negative effects of
Okay,
substance
so now
abuse.
you're using the 5 points that we
Yeah.
talked about. Excellent, very good. So one is educate Matthew on the effect and the impact of the drugs, the marijuana, the whatever, the stuff that he's using. Okay. What else?
He needs a psychiatrist, he needs rehab, he needs a therapist, he needs family therapy. I can,
So you're thinking all this must come to place at one point. So what would be a plan for you as a servant? What would you need to do?
get him in touch.
How? That's a good, yeah, how are you gonna do that?
Resources.
Good.
Talk to
Now,
someone who knows more.
okay, sure. In
I
the
don't know.
context of the church, what are you gonna do?
Talk to you.
So talk to a priest, maybe, yes. So the priest can maybe bring in the family and then have a meeting with the family and then maybe bring you in at one point since you had the early contact with Matt. Okay, good. Like we've got to get to the parents. We have to get to the parents. Matt is how old? 16?
Yeah, but I also think the parents need help. You know what I mean? The parents need
could.
help as well.
Absolutely, because they're not on the same page. There is a divorce, right?
But like,
There is a
yeah, and the
separation.
parents know. The parents are, they know
And
already.
they're coming to you and they're saying, help us out. So the parents are aware, but what have they done? We don't know that yet. So we could ask, we could check with them, what have you done? So we have to understand what the parents, what steps did they take already?
I personally just would be cautious with all of that, just because it can be a gray area and you can be too deep into it, and then it's like I don't know what to do, and they're like, no, we only trust you, and but you know what I mean. So like I would be very, very cautious.
About what?
Just the entire matter. Like I wouldn't go in and be like, yeah, okay, tell me all of your problems. I'm here. Like I can't, no, I'm not. I can't do that.
Yeah. So the idea of referral jumps at you here.
Yeah, because this is kind of outside of my realm.
But does referral then mean that we refer and we have no role to play as servants? Obviously, we
No.
do. So what is it
Like,
that,
I mean, I could be with them when the referral you know what I mean? But I wouldn't be like,
well, you don't
hi,
even
I
have
can.
to. Yeah, I mean, maybe not the referral. I'm thinking outside of the referral. So the referral piece, yes, we have to get them to seek proper help. But then what would be my role as the servant? That's what I'm seeking here.
I don't know, I'm thinking as a
Yeah.
doctor. I don't know.
However,
Someone take it.
Sorry, I just wanted to add. So the parents are the ones that are coming to you with this problem, saying, "Oh, my son has this problem and this problem." So I think the next time you see the son, instead of going at him like, "Oh, your parents told me you did this and this," and I think like you
no,
should
they're, so for this case, my understanding is they're coming with Matt.
go with the son.
Yeah, Matt is
Okay.
there.
Okay, so we wanted to add that the main thing we can do is maybe after the education, we could encourage him to come with us to like after the referral to the priest as well. We could encourage him to come with us to like activities in the church to feel like he has another kind of community that's backing him up. Like
Sure.
at this point, he doesn't have any support system. Like his parents, they don't know what they're doing, and his friends are not the good friends; they're the bad friends, and his parents pointed that out.
Mhm.
So we need to help him find friends that are good role models for him.
Okay. Okay, let me hear more on that. Yes.
I'm sorry, I just spoke, but are you trying to tell us about like the stuff that we learned about the active listening and opening up and like being there for them and all of that? Like we can do that?
Everything. No, I'm not talking about skills.
Because like we can,
I'm talking about framework. I'm talking process. Skills, Of course, you have to use the skills at all times,
Mhm.
most of the times. But what framework, process?
I don't think focusing on the parents right now is gonna do anything because they're reaching out to you for help. Yes, their separation could be very much causing this, but reverting the card back to them, being like, okay, you figure this out is not the way to go. My
Of course.
focus would be on the kid and focusing on having a safe space for him, making sure that he's able to talk, maybe get him in a separate room away from the parents so he's able to talk openly about why he's like participating in those activities, right?
Okay, so there may be a one-on-one with Matt.
Yes,
to
and
help
going
him
up
open up.
one-on-one, getting to talk
And
about it.
he's
and
not a candidate for help right now. Like, yeah, I
No.
can tell he's not on board.
Yes, like imagine being there with your parents and you're
Yes.
being forced to
And they're
talk
coming
about
to
it.
complain about you.
Exactly, like
Fix my kids.
it's only gonna increase his self-esteem issues with himself and it's gonna get him
Okay.
to be more stubborn.
Good.
So we could build that trust with him first,
Mhm.
and then instead of going right at him and be like, okay, you have that problem, you need to fix it, we can just build that trust, sorry, and like go one-on-one with him. And then once he starts talking more about it, we can start,
Then we can refer.
yeah.
Okay, I like that process. If there is anybody online, please let me know.
I was
The
thinking,
online people, if you have any thoughts on this, it would be helpful to hear them.
in terms of like a framework for where we want to go with Matt, I think I agree with sort of everybody's saying good points. I think we just need to lay them out in sort of a process that we're going to do.
Yes.
So first, I agree would be getting Matt one-on-one, talking to him, giving him like freedom to sort of speak his mind,
Mhm.
understanding why have you, because we speculated on why he's turned to the drugs, getting him to sort of either asking leading questions to get him to understand why he's chosen the drugs, or if he already thinks he has a reason to articulate that to us, we can sort of speak about it. Moving also to a father of confession, giving him hope that it can get better. Like this isn't the best that it can get for you. Sort of pushing a spiritual connection and also sort of broaching the idea slowly that we're not just spiritual and we're not just spiritual. There's a physical, like where body, mind, spirit, soul. Now, for the mind, seeing a psychiatrist, seeing a therapist could be helpful if that's something that he's open to eventually, and getting him involved in services, getting him involved in,
Okay.
giving him responsibility.
That's your process. Group 3.
So we thought about a couple of different options. One of them getting the parents involved in a way that we can help Matt to remove the car or get the van away. So like this is one thing to like start with, and then get Matt with that one servant from the church where he can keep up with him and like make sure that he checks on him, make sure everything there is progress, and then try to convince him at the beginning of like how what he's doing is not the best way for him. So this is one part. And another thing was service related. So if he takes some time to do a certain service at church, where he can replace this time that he spends with his friends with another thing. And we thought about something like outreach, homeless outreach service, where he gets to see people who have been on substances for a long time and can see how over years of taking those substances, what they could be the result.
Okay.
So it could be something that he get to witness by his eyes and see how like how this can affect him long term.
Okay, so group 1 and 2, reflect on what group 3 said. You might have to say it one more time very briefly.
Okay.
But as you're hearing group 3, I want you to tell me which principles we discussed are they applying.
So first thing with the parents to get the car removed away and like try to not have it there. Second one, having a servant that checks on Matt and uh, tries to have some sort of weekly or monthly updates to see how is he doing. And then the third one, the service and responsibility at church, and we said the homeless outreach.
What principles? Yeah. Online? About this? About the case, okay.
Be honest and listen and make sure that you feel comfortable and why
Okay, so again, applying the skills, but it seems like you're all saying something in common here. What is it that you are saying in common process-wise? What must happen first? You remember the model of counseling we talked about? What phase are you, huh? Yes, you have to first of all have rapport. If you don't have rapport with maths, you're gonna have such a hard time doing anything. Okay, and you have to gain maths trust. And this drug problem has been going on for how long? Well, from junior high, he started things, and now he's 16. So we're assuming easy 3 years, 2, 3 years. So if you need to take a bit of time to gain maths trust and have rapport, so be it. Because otherwise, math is gonna, he's gonna stop every effort. He doesn't trust his parents. He doesn't now trust you because the parents have affiliated themselves with you. So you have some stuff to work on first. Okay. Back to my question. What principles is group 3 applying? Yeah? Okay, so there's significance. There's work on significance. What else? There's easy stuff there. I feel like you want to say something. Yeah, have a look. Yeah. The principles we spoke about when we talked about drugs and alcohol and things to keep in mind. I think maybe the question is too simple, huh? Right. So we're understanding that this is a person who's acting out of a certain level of fear and voids, and there is a lot of empty time, a lot of free time on Matt's hands. There is also a connection with a group he feels he belongs to, and try and cut that. And really, what you're cutting isn't just the friendship; you're cutting everything the friendship brings to this man. So you have to work on something on replacements. Okay, what else? One more. Anything online? Yep. Okay. Yeah, so I'm educating. There is education involved, which was one of the principles we said, one of the 5 things we have to keep in mind. Very good. Any questions on the case? Anyone? Yes. No? That happens. I don't know how, like often per year or. Like I could have 3, 4 cases. Yeah. Thank God we're like the community in general is very helpful, supportive. But yeah, 3, 4 brought to me. Maybe brought to other fathers too. Something similar. And there are the cases where we all commonly get called in. Not necessarily because it's intensive, but sometimes, a lot of times, because the parents are panicking. So they just draw upon all the help they can. Oh, yes, Mina.
Let's say parents came to you as a host with this one,
Yeah.
and it is you. Okay. Would you involve their youth servant?
Yeah, of course, 100%. But I don't necessarily would do that without discussing this with the parents, of course. But definitely, I mean, as a priest is different than a servant because the priest has pastoral responsibilities over a whole bunch of people, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, whereas the servant has responsibility over 8 people. Like we divide, every servant has responsibility over 6 to 8 people. So the servant must be part of this. If the parents allow it, but if they don't, I keep saying you're losing out. And then the parents will say, no problem, yeah, and you help us out. Yeah. I understand the stigma and I understand all that, but servants, no, when we need them, we need them. And in this case, in cases like that, we need the servants. The servant is needed because of their time, because of their focus, because of their closeness. Sometimes also they're younger, so they're closer in age. They can take them out, they can take them out with their friends, and so on and so forth. Yes.
What to do when there's a large group of same age are all like heavily experimenting with alcohol?
Yeah, so we do many things. Amongst the things we do is we give special talks to that group and we take them on retreats. So we focus a little bit more on them. And then we find out the couple of people or one person that is the main momentum or the guy behind the momentum of that thing, and we start working on that person. Okay. Share emotional. Okay, let's talk about anxiety. So there are definitions of what anxiety is and all that. Worry, to be worried, to have fear, stress, concern. You have your DSM, which is the manual for diagnosis of psychiatric illnesses and disorders and all that. I'm gonna skip the video so you don't have to worry about that. Causes of anxiety. Yes. Yes, you are. I'm just waiting for the. I'm waiting for the food to the drinks and the food because I'm not hearing anyone. So, but I will give you a break at 5 after you get anxiety. Causes of anxiety, just a quick lists. Negative self-talk. I put it on top there because a lot of what happens around us and outside of us eventually gets filtered through us. And then we have these voices inside of us that speak to us. Two of them are very critical that I'd like to speak a little bit about. One is called the critical one, and the other one is called the imposter syndrome. You all know them. Imposter syndrome tells a young person or an adult or anybody, you are not the person people think you are. Just you and I know exactly who you are, and you're fake, right? And your fake doesn't come general. It can actually come very specific. Say, you know what, like people think you understand, you're like a good servant and you know all your stuff, but we know that you just do things last minute and you're not a good servant. Imposter draws strength from the critical one. The critical one is that voice inside of you says, what's wrong with you? How come you did this? Oh, how come you didn't finish this? How come you're not as good as? And so on. These are internalized voices that we bring in maybe from our childhood, from our developmental early stages of development and all that. And some of these voices are louder in some people than others, and louder at some point in my life than other times. But those can bring in so much negative self-talk that the person themselves, they create their own anxiety, not to put the burden on them actually, but to just simply say that they contribute to it. Let me say it this way. Also levels of insecurity, not sure of who they are. Again, in teenage, obviously, they're trying to figure out who they are. They're not very secure about the way they look, the way they act, their personality, whether they're liked or not. Inconsistencies in their lives also can create anxiety. Inconsistencies as in like lack of stability in their environment at home, for example, amongst their friends. Lately, I've come across a few cases where not girls, guys are having such a hard time with their guy friends, with their friends, because their friends, some of them are dropping them and they don't want to associate with them. I thought this is only a girl thing, but lately I've been actually dealing with guys issue like that. Criticism, permissiveness. Again, a teenager can get very anxious If as a child and a teen, they are in a permissive environment, everything is fine, just do whatever. People think, oh, if my parents could just let me do whatever. Actually, studies show that permissive parenting creates anxiety in the lives of kids because a big part of children want some sort of guidance and stability and structure. Exactly. Perfectionism. And I invite you to search within you because we are, as a community, we tend towards perfectionism. Okay? We tend towards perfectionism. So even discovering that in you is very important. Discovering that in me was very important. Neurology, if there's some neurological issues, yes, that can cause anxiety. Physical disorders can cause anxiety. The feeling of I don't have a meaning, the no purpose in life, and all that can also be a cause of anxiety. So how to help? Counseling a person who is anxious has challenges. Of course, not an easy, straightforward thing because anxiety is one of those things that you can easily catch. You sit with someone who's anxious; they're speaking very rapidly. They're very irritable. They even pass it on to you if you're not careful. You can very much catch it, and so to learn how to handle stress in order to improve your own well-being. So if you yourself you're struggling with anxiety, which a lot of us could be struggling with anxiety, it's important that you find a way to calm yourself down because you will be triggered as you're sitting with one of the teens who have or is struggling with anxiety, and also to help them cope as well and deal with it rather than let anxiety handle them. They learn to handle anxiety. So steps to help, the first thing is they need a proper assessment. So obviously you're not here to do assessment. So you would want some sort of a quick idea of what's going on, but they could uh, and should be referred if their anxiety is debilitating. So some of the assessments you can do is questions like the question cube that Abu Nabutra spoke to you about, right? So I'm just understanding. So what do you mean anxiety? Open-ended question. What do you mean anxiety? What is that? How does it feel? Where does it feel in your body when you get anxious? How are you feeling now as you're talking to me? On a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the worst, 0 means no anxiety. How are you feeling now? What's the number you're at? What's a 5? When you say, "Oh, I'm at a 6," really? Okay, you're a 6. You're not a 7. So what's a 6? Can you describe that for me? How often do you get anxious? How severe? Who else gets anxious in the family? Do you remember? You remember the questions? It's one of the stages that we talked about last time, coupled with what Abu Nabutra. So there could be just very general. You don't have to do like formal assessment. Anxiety, like general anxiety disorders, they have their own scales, and social anxiety, they have also some assessment tools. You just could assess by asking questions. Physician's examination. You're not a physician. You're not going to examine them. Even if you are a physician, you're not going to examine them because they're not your client. They're not your patient. But just asking, have you seen your doctor about this? Oh no, I haven't. Or yes, I have. So then from there, yes, I have. What did the doctor say? No, I haven't. What's holding you back from going? Okay. The third one is help adolescents face their anxiety. Anxiety is so tricky that it makes people anxious about being anxious, as maybe I mentioned last time. Be anxious about being anxious. Part of anxiety is us trying to flee from the problem, to run away, to avoid the problem. So helping the teen, become a friend to anxiety is one way to put it. How do you become a friend? Not that you become a friend like you call anxiety to come close to you, but to become a friend meaning, I know you. I'm not afraid of you. Whatever is causing anxiety. So let's say their anxiety is caused by performance, school performance, or a sport performance. Say, okay, when do you usually get anxious? Well, I get anxious when I go to my team to prep and to train and all that. And when you're going, so what goes? Says, I get so anxious because I'm afraid I'm not going to do so well. People who play soccer, like the youth who play soccer. Any of you here play soccer? Soccer is like, you know how it is on the field with the training? It is so intense. I think basketball is similar, but I think soccer is a little bit tougher. So help them face their anxiety rather than try and run, because part of the problem of anxiety is trying to run from it. Okay? Avoid pat answers, things like your problem is normal. All you have to do is pray and trust God, and everything will be all right. Of course we have to pray, and of course we have to trust God, but that doesn't mean that will translate in their minds to solutions right away. In fact, it could actually cause them to lose faith in God and to begin to question their faith. Because I've been praying, and why isn't God removing this from me? Well, it's like someone, I've been praying, but I've been having rhinitis for 3 weeks. What's going on? Right? So it's, yeah, of course I have to pray, but also I have to be open to what God is opening my eyes to understand. So avoid these type of answers. What do you think about the following statement? Anxiety is a sign of spiritual and psychological weakness. It will break them. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
It's anxiety that causes, it's self-perpetuating. It's like,
Yeah.
because there's no time you feel weakness, it's a positive feedback.
Now I have something else to be anxious about. I'm spiritually weak.
Yeah.
So here goes, add. So especially when people usually they have anxiety over a few things, unless you were talking about social anxiety or phobias. Usually anxiety is a little bit more general.
People that I've seen go through really anxious period of time, they come out of it a lot stronger spiritually and psychologically than they were before.
Yes.
So it's like something
If you use
strengthening.
it properly, if you work through it, if you're not burdened with pat answers like that. So because I've had serve and tell kids in class, today I'm going to talk about stress and anxiety, and guys, I want you to know, truthfully, honestly, if you are a man or a woman of God, you will not be anxious. And it's like boom, like this, I'm never gonna be. And they feel very guilty, very ashamed now, spiritually ashamed. And it's not true. It's not true. It is said about that Jesus in Gethsemane, he became very depressed. And it says in the Bible about Elijah that he became very depressed and anxious. That Jesus' anxiety in Gethsemane caused his capillaries to burst, like his superficial capillaries, and his sweat was mixed with blood. And this is Jesus Christ, and we're not talking about being worried. Yes, there's a level of worrying that obviously is connected to spirituality, right? But I wouldn't say it this way. Okay? And there are people who are really close and everything, but they have the result of trauma in their life. Their system reacted with anxiety, right? Because what does anxiety do? What is it meant to do? And if you remember, first it is serving somehow. So what does anxiety, for a child who's been hearing, for example, the footstep of his dad come, and then he'd enter into the room and beat him up. So what does anxiety serve?
It's supposed to prime you to take the.
Yes, exactly. Remember the fight and flight? So I'm like prepped to do what? To run, to hide, to disappear, right? Or to fight back. And we see that with the kids, and then when they become teens, they're stronger. Instead of running away, what do they do to their parents? They fight back. Okay. So step 5, recognize the strengths of anxiety. Is there such a thing as good anxiety? We just spoke about it, right? Like when you're anxious about passing an exam, what does your anxiety usually, what does it lead you to do? Yeah, you just plan, study more, talk to somebody, stay up a little bit late to catch up, and so on. Recognize anxiety as an agent of growth, as I think Natalie will say. Neutralize some of the anxiety. So one way to neutralize anxiety is to help a person slow down. Part of that is you speaking slower with your youth and you saying, okay, hold on, let me just try and understand this. I'm not clear about this. Just I know you're trying to tell me that something is worrying you, and I really want to hear you. Can you just walk with me just slowly a little bit because I want to understand. You see how long I took in saying those few words? Like I took what, 15 seconds or so? Slow things down. Soft voice. Generalize experience carefully. So don't say, "Ah, everybody is anxious," because you are try to help them. What could that do if you tell one of the teens, "Ah, yeah, everybody's anxious nowadays"? It normalizes it, and therefore, what's going to happen out of that normalization? Yeah, it's just okay. It's no big deal. It's fine. And then they may not even want to change or work on it. That's a possibility because remember, you're anxious about your anxiety. So if I can forget it a little bit, if I forget it and don't do something about it, then it grows. What else?
Not being heard.
Yeah.
And then in turn, they're just not gonna want to talk about
Like
it
I'm here to
anymore.
talk to you about me, not about
Yeah.
everybody else.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Or it may make them feel like you don't understand me.
Yes.
You're not
And then that
feeling
causes
what
a
I'm going
disconnect,
through,
right? And
right?
then they can't establish
Yes.
trust based on
So we must have a positive outlook, but we may not express it this way on people all the time. You know, like I catch myself on this because whenever someone says, Abuna, it's such a terrible day today. I'm like the first thing I need to think about is, oh my goodness, this is hard on you. What's going on, right? Like that's empathy versus it's a hard day today. Has it always been hard on you? I jump into solution focus. Okay, whoever is so kind to turn off the light, just please let them know to keep the light on for us. No, this is not working. I forgot to tell you that they cut the wires as they were working, so all of the hallway is off. So nurkum kifaya, like they say in Arabic, right? Like nawaru somehow, please, because أنا ما فيش نور شغال. Okay. Also, you want to instill hope. Yes. We're going to work. Yeah. So you could normalize, but be careful how you normalize it, right? To say, oh, wow, you know what? I know this is probably very specific to you. I wanna hear you out, like what's going on. So first, you got to start that, and then you say, I don't know how you're gonna hear this, but I don't mean to kind of make it sound like you're not hurting through this. I just want you to be comforted with the fact that you're not alone in this. See, the way you say it can make a big difference. Identify negative thinking. Remember, one of the first causes I listed on the first slide was negative self-talk, the critical one, and the imposter syndrome. So this is a little bit of a CBT. So I'm not going to go into CBT, but just identifying negative thinking. So when you're anxious, can you give me an example of a time where you were anxious? Says when I was anxious when I was, on that trip we went out together, or that activity, and I was there, and I was going anxious because I don't know. I was anxious. Well, what were you thinking? Well, I was thinking, will I connect with anyone? Will I just be standing on my own? Will my friend be there? Say, okay, so you're thinking about that. So get into some of the thoughts and say, okay, what else is telling you, to be anxious and ready to fight or flight? And they can come up with some very negative thoughts that you would identify through that type of questioning. That's your break. Practice. I think few more slides. Couple of more slides. Practice positive self-talk. And one of the nicest ways spiritually to do positive self-talk is to learn to pray the Psalms, because the Psalms are so positive. When you're telling God, God, listen to me, incline your ears to hear me. And then another psalm speaks about God's tenderness and His love. So practice positive self-talk through the Psalms. That's a spiritual thing. As a servant, you can help with that. through positive verses, like positive in the sense like verses that speak about God's care and love and protection of his children. But teach them to learn to say stop to the thoughts. And some people actually, they put an elastic band around their wrist, and they would just touch it like this with their hands, or they snap it, say, I remember I said I'm going to stop thinking this way. It's not self-harm or anything. It's just, oh, it's a reminder. I'm not going to think this way. Others imagine a stop sign, big, huge red stop sign saying stop. People who think like, I'll never fall asleep. I know something terrible is going to happen. The sense of doom is accompanying anxiety. No one would ever want to go out with me. Practicing self-positive or practice positive statements. I am upset now, but things will get better soon. So help them to put the negative first in the sentence in their mind, and then but and the positive. Okay. So like the examples you see on the screen here, worry does not help, but action does. I am uncertain, and that's all right. I don't have to be certain. Calm down and relax. It's all right. These are all examples of positive self-talk, especially this one, very powerful. Anxiety is about not being certain. Remember the gadgets? Anxiety is about not knowing, but that's not it. Anxiety says, you don't know X, but you must know X, otherwise you're not okay. And there is no way to know X. Like, I don't know how I'll do on my exam. And today there is no way you will know how to do, you'll do on your exam. I'm not sure. I'm so anxious. I'm not going to get into the schools I applied to. And the next step is, and I actually can never tell right now if I'm going to get in or not. So anxiety plays a game on people where it tells you it is not good to be uncertain. And guess what? You are uncertain. So it makes you play a game where the rules are set so that you will lose every single time, guaranteed, if you play the game. Did you get that? So to help the kids say, you know what? It's okay to be uncertain. Say, what is it that you don't? Are you sure you're gonna, be okay 5 minutes from now? No, I'm not sure I'll be okay. But do you feel anxious about that? No. And by the way, you're not giving them another reason to be anxious unless they have full diagnosis of general anxiety disorder. Then really what you're doing is saying, okay, are you anxious right now? Say, yeah, I'm very anxious. Say, okay, make yourself more anxious. Can you make yourself more anxious? So what's going on with the anxiety? It says my heart rate usually goes up. And okay, so can you check your heart rate? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you make your heart rate go faster? No, I can't. See? So it's okay to be uncertain. You're uncertain and you don't know, and yet your heart rate has not risen, has not gone up, and so on. So this is actually quite powerful, especially from a spiritual perspective. We are uncertain, but God is certain. And that's why we call him a Pantocrator. So you say, but you trust in God. He says, yes, I trust in God. So every time you say, I don't know, and it's not good to know, say, I don't know, that's true, but it's okay not to know. And then people can actually learn, I don't know, it used to be okay not to know, now I like not knowing. And that's like really powerful when they get there. Let me close this section, say, so you can obviously not as a servant, but maybe you can let them breathe in and out. Sighing, they say, is as breathing deeply, by the way. So you know how they do a lot of like this? Actually going like this helps, right? When people are speaking negatively to themselves, say, I'm a failure, I'm a failure, I'm a failure. Can you say that, please? Can you please say that? But say it as you mean it. Can you say, I'm a failure? Go ahead. Say it. There's no tricks to it. Say, I'm a failure. I'm a failure. Go ahead. What are you smiling at? Go ahead. Can you say it? Now, tell someone to put their heads up like this and say, I'm a failure. Just having their head up does not make the same words, I'm a failure, hurt them the same way. Just by changing the way their posture is, they can't say, I'm so depressed. It doesn't work. Usually when you're depressed, you go like this, I'm so depressed, right? So actually by helping them through simple things like that, and these are obviously things that, yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm so depressed, yeah. They become more self-aware as to what recruits them to anxiety and what recruits them to calmness. And one of the best things you could help someone who is anxious realize is they're not anxious people. They are people who get visited by anxiety. Is such a very clear and important distinction. You're not a depressed person. You are a person who gets visited by depression. Exploring spiritual issues and when to refer is when there is intense anxiety or things are getting worse despite the fact that you try to help over time and it's affecting their day-to-day life and they're not able to sleep and they're not able to eat or it's impacting the way they function day to day. You know immediately this is not just, oh, I'm worried about my exam, dear servant. No. There's something much deeper. They do need to speak to their physician. They need to see maybe a therapist or a counselor. Okay, let's break. It's 5:07. We'll do 5:17, 5:25, 5:27. 5:27. No, but be ready because 5:27 I will actually start talking about I will post the anxiety case study. If we have a chance, we'll discuss it, but we will get into suicide intervention right after. Okay? 5:27. Saying this is really, we don't do examination. We used to do essays. Like when we first started this program, there was always a culminating deliverable where you had to write like a 3,000 word essay, working with a case or someone and so on, interviews, a whole bunch of stuff. And then we decided, you know what, it's going to be case based because what we care about is your learning. That's all we really want. And case based because that's more, that's closer to real life. It mimics what you would actually see in service when you are serving. So either Teresa or Andrew, one of those two cases, will be posted under week 5. You can still continue your break. You have 3 minutes. But you have the case of Teresa already under week 5. So you can comment on that. Feel free. I mean, if you want to post and repost and post and reply to someone else, feel free to do that. They're only 200 words, but what is really being asked of you is to do an initial post just on Teresa. Here, it's already in there. Okay. Okay, so Zoom should be seeing this. Okay, suicide ideation. It's important that we speak about that. I keep wanting to add a course to YMCP called Crisis Management in Youth Adolescent Ministry. And if I do that, then I would be expanding on suicide ideation plus, other things as well. But for now, you get the benefit of talking about this because that's going to happen. You are 100%, you're going to meet someone in high school ministry who tells you something like, I hate my life, I want it to end. So let me first ask you some questions. And if you agree, you put your hand like this. Can we try this? We are in the church. Yeah, let's try and do it a little bit faster, so because I have a bunch of questions here. Okay. Suicide is wrong. Oh, if you don't agree, you don't put your hand up. That's it. That's the default. People have a right to suicide. Persons who die by suicide are responsible for their actions. I want you to look at each other as you're doing this exercise, okay? So like, can you turn to one another? Just to actually see how the hands are going. So suicide is wrong. Suicide is wrong. Can you turn this so that you actually see? Oh, I'm gonna go back. People have a right to suicide. Look at each other. Persons who die by suicide are responsible for their actions. There are limits to what I would do, I as in you, to prevent suicide. There are limits to what I would do to prevent suicide. Persons thinking about suicide also have reasons for living. People serious about suicide cannot be helped. Should I say it again? No? Okay. Our community can work together to prevent suicide. I have failed if a person I am helping dies by suicide. I will be ashamed if someone I am close to dies by suicide. Anyone can be at risk of suicide. My community recognizes the burden of suicide. No one calls a death by suicide a successful suicide. No one calls a death by suicide a successful suicide. No one should. No one should call a death by suicide a successful suicide. Okay. Everyone is willing to do something to help prevent suicide. Everyone is willing to do something to help prevent suicide. So either you agree or disagree. Keeping someone safe is more important than fears of getting involved. Helping others to avoid suicides is rewarding. There is help for me as I help others keep safe. People thinking about suicide find ways to invite help. Most people considering suicide want to live. You don't know, yeah. Persons at risk of suicide can be understood. Anyone talking about suicide is taken seriously. Do you agree with the statement? That's the question. I feel ready, willing, and able to help someone avoid suicide. My assistance can help save a life. Very good. So, let's talk about suicide ideation, ideation, intervention, and management. So that's the handout I gave. I just went through it with you. Most people actually are on a spectrum of experiencing some level of, I don't want to be here. And like common amongst Egyptian parents, when two people fight, say, Ya Rabb khudni. It's right, like it's like, I don't want to live, God take me. أنا نفسي أموت. There are expressions in Arabic like this, and so your youth will be exposed to that because their parents still deal with majority parents who are first immigrants. So From time to time, things could change, especially if the youth is dealing with some sort of a loss or some sort of a setback in their life. The suicidal ideation by itself may not indicate that a person is in fact suicidal. So the thoughts that come doesn't mean that the person is actually suicidal. But suicide, as need to be very clear to you, is not in the mind of the youth about death itself. It is rather about them being in touch with the pain that they have, and they want to end the pain. That, especially if that pain mostly is a pain that is psychological pain. And people do send out, SOS signals. Help me, help me, help me. And very important as servant to be able to catch these signals. 80% of youth do not die in their first attempts. And talking to a person about suicide will not make them try it. There's this wrong understanding, or I should say misunderstanding, that if you were wondering if a youth is suicidal, if you were to say, "Are you thinking about suicide?" People hold back from saying this because they are afraid I am seeding the thought of suicide in the youth mind. Okay, no such thing. No such thing. When you speak like that, sometimes it's actually a relief to most of you. Say, yeah, it's like sometimes I don't want to be here. And they feel relieved that you actually open them up to talk, because the ideology or this ideation of suicide is shameful to them. They feel guilty. They have reasons why they shouldn't think this way, and so on and so forth. So when you actually bring it up, you open up the door for their SOS, like you open up the door for them to discuss it and get some help and be able to manage these ideations. And those who threaten to commit suicide, they actually mean what they say. So if one says, I am going to kill myself, don't brush it off and say, oh, they're probably just calling for attention. They could be, but you and I should not brush it off. We should manage, we should assess and manage. So in almost every case, the person or the youth considering to commit suicide would choose to live if they could find another solution to end the pain that they're feeling. And that's very hopeful. So it's not really about death. It's not love of death. It's actually, I cannot take the pain, the thoughts, the feelings that I have. But if someone can show me how I can take them or manage them better, hey, I'll take that route and I won't think of suicide. You get that? So if an attempt is non-lethal, it didn't take their life, they're not just looking for attention. So, every time you say this, you take a whole bunch of Tylenols and you're going to survive anyways. That's not the way to properly handle this. It's an attempt for them to call for help. It's a cry for help. Help me. I'm in distress somehow. About 80% of lethal suicides, they follow an earlier attempt. So if someone has attempted once, they're at higher risk now of actually ending their life through their second or third attempts. Okay? Also, if someone in the family has committed suicide, the risk for that teenager who is in that family is now higher than someone else in a family where no one has committed suicide. So we ought not to ignore these painful signals or painful feelings, because these painful feelings will not go away on their own. We'll not make them go away on their own. So they cannot just bottle things up. They need to express their feelings and handle and manage their feelings. So here is an assessment. If there is a yes to any of the, call it CPR for you to remember, for C or P or R. C means current suicide plan. They have a current suicide plan. They know how, I know we have a very sharp knife in the kitchen, and I keep looking at it and I'm thinking this, if I thrust this in me, I will definitely kill myself. If I actually cut my veins or my arteries. Really, people who are committing suicide, well, I'm not going to tell you how to commit suicide, but I'm just saying, like, yeah, no, but if I give you an idea of how to do it, that could, yeah, but to ask the question, are you thinking of suicide, is not going to seed the thought. But to tell them, by the way, you cannot kill yourself really like this as much. If you really want to kill yourself, you should do it. It's a different story. Right? Like it's but again, people, there's a difference between self-harm and suicide. But the research also shows that people who regularly self-harm, they may be walking, there is a tendency for them to start walking towards suicide. Because again, part of self-harm is about the emotional cloud that they're in and the inexpression of feeling in a proper way and so on. But if they have a current suicidal plan, they have the how prepared, how soon, how they're going to do it. Also, if there is pain, if they have pain at times that feel unbearable, and if they have resources, do you feel you have few, if any, resources? So they don't have resources. So do you feel like you have few, if any, resources? They don't have resources. They have no one to talk to. No one is listening to them. The house is all divided up. They really don't feel safe talking to their counselor at school, whatever it is. If there is a yes here, a yes here, a yes there, a yes in two of them, a yes in all three of them, the risk is higher and higher. Do you get that? Why does a yes answer to each question set off a risk alert? So let's have a bit of a background here. Prior suicidal behavior. Have you ever attempted suicide before? Because if you have, your second or third attempt will most likely be successful. Unfortunately, I'm using the word successful. Mental health. If they have mental health, if they're diagnosed with clinical depression of any sort, if they have anxiety, if they have bipolar, if they have any of these things that when you study, they say that there is a risk of suicide. Also, because some of the meds they take have been found to be associated with an increased risk of suicide or attempting suicide. Not that the meds necessarily can cause that, but because the meds, they do try and regulate certain hormones, like certain chemicals, that is, they may, and they have been found in trials to be associated with an increased risk of suicide, whether that's because of the population involved or that plus the fact that the meds may cause some alteration in the brain chemicals. Again, something that you need to keep in mind. In terms of intervention, there is an intervention called Assist. I'm introducing it only to you. I'm not training. This is a full day workshop called Assist. And some people can get that training online, so you can pay for it and get it. But I'm just introducing it here for you to give you some elements that could help you as a servant. First, the usual. You must connect, then you must understand, and thirdly, you assist. So you can go to Assist Suicide Intervention Model, and the whole presentation is on Moodle. How many of you access Moodle, by the way? Okay, please, if you haven't, and most of you have, but I encourage everyone to access because material is right on there. So what does Assist tell us? This gives us a way to respond to each risk. First, you have to connect. You have to empathize. You have to listen. You have to ask questions. And be careful when you ask questions that you don't sound like you're interrogating or drilling, but ask the question softly, but connect, have a rapport. Rapport is base for all work that you do. It's the base for all work. It's the heart of everything you do. You always do it with an alliance with the youth. You connect and you make the rapport strong. And then you're looking into where is the person on the spectrum. So, for example, so that they're like risk alerts. You link them into health workers. So, the person is vulnerable, they're by themselves, they may have a plan, but you can't just leave it at that. You want to make sure they're connected with someone. But let's say they are familiar with suicide. So we're going up. Let's say they are alone. They are vulnerable, familiar, and alone. Or they're this and they're desperate. And then they're all this and prepared with a plan. And then they are suicidal. Like they are at the risk of suicide at the highest. So you see that the risks are going up. So here, if they're vulnerable, you might say something like, you know, you've been talking a lot about feeling down and very stressed and not being understood. And I've kind of seen it on your face every time I see you. You're not feeling very well. Have you talked to someone about this? Can we talk to what's happening with your parents? Can we talk to the parents? Can we talk to Abuna? Connect them. They need to connect to somebody who can help them. Eventually, you want them to see a therapist or to see their doctor or to see someone who can speak to them a little bit and see what's going on with them. You also want to be involved as a servant in terms of, helping them in their spiritual path, helping them, boost their self-esteem and so on and so forth. But now, if they're familiar with suicide, you want to protect against the danger and support past survival skills. How did you survive before? And we'll talk about this. I'm just going quickly over it, and then I'll give you the scheme. But if they are alone, you need to connect them to resources, and if they're desperate, you need to find a way to ease their pain. If they're prepared, you need to disable their preparation, their plan, because prepared means they have a plan. And if they're suicide, you need to keep them safe, and sometimes you will not let them go. I've had someone in the church at one point said, I'm going to commit suicide tonight, and knew exactly what to do and all that. We did not let that person leave. We took that person to the hospital. So you see that it can go as far as that. And that person came to me and came to us through a servant. And the servant did not ignore it, thank God. And that's why in YMCP, we hope that we train servants who are much more aware of these matters, that they cannot turn the other way and say, it's just no big deal. They're just saying that. Okay. So the three-stage model, which is called assist. Stage one, you connect. So sense of acceptance, you give them a sense of acceptance and support. I'm here for you. I know this must be difficult. Let me hear you out. What's going on? Let's go sit in a quiet place so we can talk and no distractions. And then you explore the signs that suicide is connected to current life events. So are you thinking of harming yourself? Are you thinking of hurting yourself? And you can even say, are you thinking of killing yourself? If it's not clear to the person, you say it out loud. And you say, okay, what's going on in your life that's connected to how you're feeling and to these thoughts of suicide? Confirm suicide is present or not, like I said, by asking, and show you are ready and able to help prevent it. So you know what? Yeah, this is a very important matter. I'm glad you said it. I'm glad you're honest with me and you said that. You know what? Let me try and help you out here. I just need to, and maybe at one point we might both of us need to go and speak to someone, but at least for now, let's talk, you and I. Then the stage two is understanding. Develop mutual understanding for reasons of dying and living. Dying is one and living is another, right? So I put them on here in the same sentence, but I actually want you to think of them separately. Dying, what's causing these thoughts to come? What's happening in your life? What is this related to? Ask the question cube. Okay, so you get that. But now you want to say, okay, but even though you're thinking about suicide, you are still alive. And people think, hold on, are you just telling them they should just go kill themselves? No, I'm asking a genuine question. You're still alive. Isn't that the truth? Yes. Can you help me understand what's keeping you alive? And here you want to begin the story of life. You've already heard the story of death and what's causing the ideas to increase. And now you want to say, okay, but you're alive. What's going on? Like, what's keeping you alive? And here you'll hear things like, I cannot imagine the face of my mom as she's in front of my body. Another person would say, but I don't want to go to hell. You'll hear that a lot from the people in the church. Just don't want to go to hell. I don't want to be separated from people that I love, like my grandfather who passed away, and I know he's in heaven and stuff like. Because I think maybe there is a better way. They'll give you other 1, 2, 3, 10 reasons why they're alive. And if they don't, say, if you were to continue to be alive, what would that mean? So what are you doing here? You're enlarging the story of life. You get that? And then you establish the life side foundation. Show respect for person at risk through willingness to listen. And then you establish this living part, you increase it. And you imply and you establish it as a foundation, as something strong. Then you assist. You say, okay, so now when these thoughts come to you, first you're asking, how often do they come? And you're checking intensity and frequency. And then you say, so what on a scale of 0 to 10, learn to know to use scales. 0 means no suicidal ideation, 10 means extreme, like I can't even bear them. Where are you on the scale now? What was your worst number? What was your best number? And have a conversation through that. And then say something like, okay, I want to have a plan that we both agree on. Say, when you get these thoughts, remember we talked about what's keeping you alive. When you get these thoughts, what are you going to do to push them away and to manage them? And a person would say, I have no idea, I'm overwhelmed, I can't even think of anything. Say, well, but imagine these thoughts are coming to you. Don't give up on the first no. What would you end up doing? It's like you're acting quote unquote silly, stupid, like you say, yes, what are you gonna do? Say, well, some people say, no, I don't think I can even push them. Now you know, after trying two, 3 times, they're stuck with the suicidal ideation and they're giving you a 9 or 8 or 10 on the scale, that you cannot just leave that person to leave. And you need to immediately say, you know what, I think this is important that we at least get Abuna to talk to. So if you don't mind, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, but I'm just gonna call Abuna, I'm gonna call the servant to come and give us a hand in this. And don't worry, let them say no, or it doesn't matter. At this point, really they are at a point where they will act on their suicidal ideation. But if they come and say, you know what, if the thought comes to me, I think what I could do is I can call a friend. Say, okay, who would you call? So and so. Can you show me if you have their number on the phone? You have to go very concrete. Say, and who else will you call if you get these thoughts? Says, I'm gonna call you. Say, okay, can you show me that you have my number on your phone? Can you put it on the, like on the what list, like the favorites, on favorites? Okay, and what else? I said, well, when I get these thoughts, I'm going to think, I don't want to go to hell. I love my mom too much that I don't want her to be very upset and feel. I really love my sibling, and I don't want my younger brother to think that their sister died of suicide. I'm going to think about the good stuff that's happening in my life. So he gives you 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 things that they will do to push away the story of death and to welcome the story of life. And you're assessing, are they genuine in saying that? And as you could even say, so if you get these thoughts, you're going to do that. And if the thoughts go away, great. Now, if you do that and the thoughts keep coming back the same time and they're coming more intense and they're really hard for you to manage, what are you going to do? It says, I'm going to call you, I'm going to call my friend, I'm going to call Abuna. And it says, if you call all these people and for some weird reason, no one is able to answer you, what are you going to do? And you're leading to something here. You're leading to say, make sure you call 911, or if you're in Peel, Peel Mobile Crisis, or if you're in Halton, Halton Mobile Crisis, and you gotta make sure you get the number in front of them and you have the number and you make sure they have it on their phone. Okay? And so you say, okay, now that we've agreed on this plan, I think, I feel like you can do this. You don't want to die because it's all about the pain. And if you can find a way to work on the pain and you can talk about, let's talk to Abuna, let's talk to, see if we can speak to a therapist. Let's make sure if we can maybe connect with your family and your parents through Abuna to make sure that they also pay attention to what's going on so that they get supported, the whole thing. But then you secure commitment. Do you give me your word that this is the plan that you will follow if you get suicidal ideation? And if they're not able to say yes, or they say yes, but it's not a yes, you start and say, I can't really, we have to do this before I feel like you're okay to go. And you say, okay, no problem, I'll do it. Say, okay, let's go through the plan again. What are you going to do? Don't say the plan for them. Let them say it. Let them reiterate the plan. Let them put their commitment. Sometimes people write this down and get them to sign it. Whatever it is, you get their commitment Then you finished stage 3. When you do take the training and able to do all that I said today, they give you this small pamphlet that speaks about connecting, understanding, assisting. Here you explore and ask, you invite, death past. So, you know, the story of death, their past, feeling lonely. Is there suicide or not? And then you get to understand, you begin to listen, you know, what are the reasons? Um, and here you review the risks, and then you go into the assisting, which is safe plan that you have with them and a commitment to the plan. That's basically a quick overview of suicide ideation and a quick way of handling suicide and managing it better. Any questions? All good? Yes.
If we have like significant doubt that there's like a child or a youth that's participating in self-harm,
There's what, sorry?
like a child or a youth that's like engaging in self-harm,
Self-harm?
self-harm,
Not suicide.
not suicide. Should this be discussed with parents or no?
So I would first encourage, I would have a conversation. You need to connect with the youth first. There's a connection that needs to be there. There's an assessment that you need to do. There is you and maybe the other servants need to talk about it anonymously. You need to talk to Abuna about it immediately, anonymously. Because then there will be probed to think. And then you speak to the youth again, say, okay, let's talk to somebody because this is going to hurt you. You do education. Why is this harmful like you did with alcohol? Why this is hurtful? Why this can do, you know, how is it? And then remember that as these 5 needs can work against them, they can also work for them, right? So be careful because you want to be beautiful. You want to remain nice. You don't want to disfigure your arm. You don't want to disfigure like, you know, they cut in the bikini, you know, like areas so people don't see it. They don't just cut here, right? They cut here, they cut down here, and so on. So you say, you know what? So you want to go on vacation in the summer and all that. You want to, you know, look very nice and good. And I think that's important. You told me you've gone to Cuba and this, and so you can actually work on their sense of need in a positive way, right? But regardless, I think it's important that you bring them to speak to someone, or at one point that person, Abuna, can speak to the parents. Why do I say this? Because maybe in a community like ours, maybe some parents would feel embarrassed and ashamed that somebody other than Abuna
Knows. Yeah.
spoke about this. Even if the servant knows, but it's something about the face-to-face interaction over something like this. But if you know the parents well, you know the parents well, you tell the youth, listen, you and I, we have to talk to mom together about this. Oh, I don't want to. You work on convincing the person. If not the same, okay, then at least you and I have to go talk to Abuna about this. Or let's talk to this other servant who is a physician, for example, who may have resources and so on, right? But we don't just leave it at, you know, because if you tell them don't cut, that's not going to do it. They're going to continue to cut. Cutting, there are two main reasons why people cut. And so someone with that knowledge and the knowledge of how to work through it, and most likely, if not always, it is related to trauma in the life of the person. And that's why we have to get some assistance. Okay? So this is don't open it up, but connect. Form that alliance, and then say, you know, this is what we need to do, let's do it together. Okay, just a quick thing. Generally speaking, as I said, we usually have a week or two off of this time around because of our instructor for the second course. Our instructors for the second course, they're going to give theirs in January. We had to flip and get our third instructor, Tanner Camel, who teaches curriculum design and activity planning for youth, for adolescent ministry. All courses are interesting, but really you're going to enjoy Tamer. He brings in a lot of experience, both from the church and from his work. And he's very nice, dynamic, great speaker. His time, because of him traveling around Christmas time, he can actually start next week and get you to be done by December 15th. So those 5 sessions for his course, you will finish 2 courses before Christmas. Then you will have, I think, 3 weeks off. And then in March break, you're going to have another 2 or 3 weeks off as well. So you're going to have chances to catch up if there are any catching up that you need to do. Plan it, look at your calendar, see exactly what chapters you need to finish because, like I said to you, I'm going to count on your integrity. Obviously, you're studying to be a youth minister or an adolescent servant. So I'm really counting, I've always counted on the integrity of you. Say, Abuna, I'm done the books. That's all I want to hear from you in order for you to graduate. That's very, very important. As you can tell, the emphasis is on learning. It's not on it's not task oriented. You have to do this, except you have to read and you have to participate here. Apart from that, we don't give you much more else to do. Tamer may give you some stuff to work on again as groups. He's very interactive. He will start next week, so it is very hard for you to catch if you miss and you don't, for any reason, you don't actually do the online. And you're not permitted to miss more than 2 times maximum per course. Otherwise, you fail the course. You don't have the course. So it's so important that if you're not, so it's so important that you are here in person because it gives us a chance to do the discussion we do. I think you're gonna love the next course. I personally enjoy the course a lot and it will start at 3 o'clock. There is a possibility it won't be here because of follow this. Follow
Follow the Holy Family.
Follow the whole family. The whole family.
Like the Holy Family.
Follow the Holy Family. So we might actually send you on the WhatsApp that we're gonna go downstairs in one of the Sunday school rooms, and so it's important that you look at your WhatsApp for the place, but definitely the class will start, second course will start next week at 3. So come in like most of you came in 10 to 3, which is excellent. Come like a few minutes before 3, and you will be joined by Tamer. You will get new books for the course, and there will be a Moodle up and the post and all that for anyone who will not attend. The day you don't attend, you have to do an initial post and a reply to someone's post, or an initial post, and if you don't find anyone to reply to or anything interesting to reply to, you can do a second post. Okay.
I just want to clarify, even if we attend today, we have to do the case for Teresa, right?
Only the case for Teresa because we were supposed to really do it here, but I really wanted to get to this, and we've allowed discussion, so it took us a little bit more time, and we were waiting for the donuts and stuff. So we got a little bit, maybe 15 minutes behind. So you only need to do one post on Teresa, which is a reflect. You can do it as groups if you want, or if you find it easier to just put your thoughts down, answering the question on that case. That's all I need. Any questions? Good.
So just to recap, were there any other posts that you do in the past, or this only one?
No, that's the only one you can do, unless you were not here in person for any of the past. Then you have to go back and do those. Yeah. And do read your syllabus, especially around due dates. So in the syllabus for this course, which is right at the top of the course, read the due dates for everything. Okay, wonderful. Let us close with prayer. Oh yeah, different reading materials. Yeah, different reading materials. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Bless us, our Heavenly Father, that hear us and make us worthy to praise all thanksgiving, our Father who art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. In Christ Jesus our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And now the love of God the Father, grace his only begotten Son, our Lord, God and Savior Jesus Christ, the gift, the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. You may go in peace. The peace of God be with you. Good night, even people online. See ya, and everyone else.